No one saw it coming. At least, not like this. After dominating the criminal underworld for nearly a decade on screen, Conrad Harrigan, the cold-blooded mastermind at the heart of MobLand, is finally dead. But it wasn't just his death that shocked us. It was the quiet way he fell, the slow unraveling of power, and the haunting feeling that this was never really about him. This is where it all begins to fall apart, or maybe fall into place. To understand why Conrad Harrigan's death in episode 9 hit so hard, we have to go back. Back to the beginning, when he wasn't just a character, but the pulse of the entire series. From the moment MobLand opened its very first episode, Conrad was a force. Smart, ruthless, always 10 steps ahead. He didn't need to raise his voice. He didn't need to show off. His silence, his cold stares, and that eerie calm before he ordered someone's execution, that was what made him terrifying. He ruled the city with an iron grip, and anyone who crossed him rarely lived long enough to regret it. But even kings don't rule forever. And for Conrad, the fall started slowly, almost quietly. It began with the shift in loyalty. For most of Season 1, we've watched his inner circle start to crack. His right-hand man, Darnell, began keeping secrets. His enforcer, Rico, started showing signs of doubt, asking questions instead of just following orders. And his own nephew, Trey, who once looked up to him like a father, began drifting toward the other side. These weren't loud betrayals. They were quiet ones, dangerous ones. Episode by episode, Conrad became more isolated. He didn't notice it at first. He was still running his empire, calling the shots, taking meetings in dark rooms with city politicians and crooked cops. But power built on fear only lasts as long as that fear remains. And Conrad didn't realize how much fear he'd already lost. Law enforcement also started creeping in. The city's special task force, led by Detective Vargas, had been closing in all season. But it wasn't just about evidence, it was about turning people. One by one, the people around Conrad were flipped. Darnell gave them intel, Rico fed them locations. And by the time episode 8 ended, Trey had already met with Vargas in secret, trading blood for immunity. That brings us to episode 9, where everything finally breaks. The episode opens with Conrad alone in his penthouse. No guards, no noise, just him and a drink, looking out over a city that used to be his. The symbolism is heavy here. For the first time, Conrad looks small, vulnerable, a man sitting on a throne made of nothing but old memories. Throughout the episode, we see the world moving without him. Darnell is gone, Rico has vanished, and Trey, his own blood, is circling like a shark. The flashbacks in this episode are telling. We see moments from earlier seasons. Conrad mentoring Trey, promising to protect him, raising him in the business. But then, we cut to the present. Trey loading a gun. It's clear. This is no longer a family drama. It's a takeover. What's most interesting about the build-up is how slow and patient it is. There's no chaos, no big gunfight. Not yet. The writers use silence and space to show just how alone Conrad has become. Every room he walks into feels colder. Every deal he tries to make falls apart. And by the time he realizes how bad things are, it's already too late. The final warning comes when one of his old allies, Martin K., tells him, "The streets don't fear you anymore, Conrad. They're just waiting for you to die." And that's when it hits. MobLand didn't just kill off a character in episode 9, it dismantled a legacy. Conrad Harrigan didn't fall in a blaze of bullets. He crumbled from within. And that slow fall, piece by piece, betrayal by betrayal, made the moment of his death feel like something far bigger than a murder. It was a collapse, a closing chapter. The death of an empire. No gunfight, no police raid, no dramatic car chase. When Conrad Harrigan died, it was quiet. Too quiet. That's what made it so chilling. The scene begins near the end of the episode. Conrad is in his private study, lights, low jazz music playing softly, his usual late-night routine. He's reading an old case file, the same one he used to blackmail half the city. But tonight, it's not power he sees in those pages. It's the faces of people he betrayed. People who are now either dead, missing, or turned against him. His hand trembles slightly as he puts the file down. For the first time, Conrad looks tired. The tension starts to build when he reaches for his glass of bourbon and hears a sound behind him. A soft creak. The camera stays on his face. He doesn't turn around. He just closes his eyes for a second. He knows. Someone's there. And it's not a mistake. The way the scene is shot is masterful. The director uses long takes. No cuts, no quick movements. Just slow, steady dread. We see a shadow move across the back wall. A figure enters the room, steps almost silent on the wooden floor. The audience is holding its breath. Conrad doesn't flinch. He finally speaks, voice low. Took you long enough. The figure steps into the light. It's Trey. This is the moment fans had speculated about for weeks, maybe even months. Trey, once the quiet nephew learning the business, now standing over the man who raised him. Hand in his hand, a silenced pistol. But it's not a rushed kill. That's what makes it powerful. Trey doesn't shoot right away. He walks over to the desk, places the gun on it, sits down across from Conrad. The two of them stare at each other. No music. No dialogue, just heavy, suffocating silence. Finally, Trey breaks it. You made me what I am, but you never thought I'd outgrow you. Conrad responds with a tired smile. There's no fear, just acceptance. Maybe even a little pride. His words are soft. Then I did my job. The final exchange between them is more than a confrontation. It's a passing of the torch, whether intentional or not. Trey tells Conrad that everything he's built will fall, and Conrad replies that it already has. His voice shakes, not from fear, but from something more human. Regret. The actual shot is quiet. One bullet, straight to the chest. No blood splatter shown, just Conrad falling back in his chair, eyes open, staring at nothing. The camera lingers, not on Trey, but on Conrad's face. The man who controlled everything now controls nothing, and still, the silence continues. Trey stands up, pockets the gun, and leaves. No final words, no revenge speech. Just a quiet exit from a room filled with ghosts. From a filmmaking perspective, this scene is a masterclass in restraint. There's no loud music, no fast cuts, no over-the-top emotion. The power comes from what's not said, from the stillness. From the history between these two characters now ending with one choice. Even the lighting plays a role. As Conrad dies, the last bit of light in the room dims. A symbol, perhaps, of the world losing one of its darkest kings. What's even more haunting is what happens next. Nothing. The show doesn't immediately cut to chaos or reaction shots. It lets the moment breathe. We sit with it. Just like Trey does. Just like Conrad probably knew we would. His death wasn't meant to spark a war. Not yet. It was meant to be a moment of realization. A shift. The end of one era and the dangerous beginning of another. By the time the credits roll, one thing is clear. The story is far from over. In fact, it might just be beginning. With Conrad Harrigan gone, MobLand doesn't slow down. It speeds up. Because when a giant falls, there's always a rush to fill the space they left behind. The first and most obvious change is power. Conrad wasn't just a crime boss. He was the crime boss. Every major deal, every dirty cop, every rival truce, it all went through him. His death doesn't just leave a hole in the leadership, it leaves a citywide vacuum. And in a place like MobLand, power vacuums never stay empty for long. Let's talk about the big question. Who's next? At the top of the list is Trey. He's the one who pulled the trigger. He planned it, and he walked out of that study like he'd already made peace with what comes next. But that doesn't mean the streets will follow him. Trey is young, he's smart, yes, but he's never run an empire. He's always been in the shadows, watching, learning. Now the spotlight is on him. And not everyone is happy about that. Some of Conrad's old allies may see Trey's move as betrayal, not leadership. Especially people like Darnell, who may have quietly turned against Conrad, but never wanted to see him dead. Darnell has his own connections, his own ambitions, and more experience. If Trey doesn't move carefully, he could face a war from within, before the streets even pick a side. Then there's Detective Vargas, whose quiet investigation finally paid off. But with Conrad out of the way, what happens now in most crime stories? The police celebrate a kingpin's death, but not in MobLand. Because now that the biggest fish is gone, the pond is full of hungry sharks. Vargas might have wanted justice, but what's coming could be worse than anything Conrad ever did. Chaos, turf wars, blood on every corner. What's fascinating about this shift is how it changes the tone of the show. For 8 episodes, MobLand felt organized. Even when things went wrong, Conrad had rules. He had control. People feared him, but they also respected the balance he kept. Now, that balance is gone, and the writers make sure we feel that. Even in the final moments of episode 9, there's no calm. Trey returns home, and the silence around him isn't peaceful. It's heavy, unsettling, like the calm before a storm. One small moment near the end of the episode hints at what's next. A short scene, just a few seconds. Rico, the former enforcer, driving alone in the night. He gets a call. He answers without speaking. The voice on the other end says, "It's done. Phase 2 begins now." Then the call ends. No name, no face, just a plane already in motion. This is what MobLand does best, layers. Conrad's death isn't just an ending, it's a turning point. Every character now faces new choices, new alliances, new threats, and the city itself becomes a different character. Dirtier, meaner, less predictable. Even the audience feels the shift. Up until now, many viewers probably believed that Conrad would last until at least the season finale, if not longer. Killing him in episode 9 was a statement. It told us that no one is safe, not even the main boss, and that creates tension in every scene moving forward. But here's the genius part. Conrad may be dead, but his influence isn't. He left behind secrets, files, footage, blackmail, maybe even a backup plan. We already know he was the kind of man who prepared for everything. So, what if he planned for this too? What if his death was only the first move? As viewers, we're left wondering, did Trey really win? Or is he just stepping into a trap that was laid long before he ever picked up that gun? In this world, death isn't the end. It's often the beginning of something much darker. The moment Conrad Harrigan was killed, the internet exploded. Within minutes of episode 9 airing, fan forums, social media threads, and review sites were flooded with one question. Did that really just happen? The reaction was a mix of shock, praise, and heartbreak. For years, Conrad had been the face of MobLand's darkness. Viewers hated him, feared him, and, secretly, admired how calculated he was. So when Trey pulled that trigger, it wasn't just a character's story ending. It was a shift in the emotional center of the show. Some fans celebrated. They called it the most satisfying moment in the series. For them, this was justice. A long-awaited payoff after watching Conrad manipulate, murder, and betray his way through the city. Memes started circulating within hours. Trey standing over Conrad's body with captions like "Graduation Day" or "The student becomes the master." Others weren't so quick to cheer. These fans argued that Conrad still had more story to tell. Some even said the writers made a mistake killing him too early. They felt episode 9 should have built toward a massive showdown, maybe even a betrayal from inside law enforcement, or a multi-boss shootout. Instead, what they got was quiet and personal. For some, that felt like a missed opportunity. For others, it was exactly what made it powerful. Even more interesting were the conspiracy theories that popped up. A small but loud section of the fanbase started to question whether Conrad is actually dead. Some pointed out that we never see a funeral. Others noted that Trey didn't check for a pulse. And a few fans believed the entire killing was staged, as part of a deeper plan by Conrad to go underground and rebuild from the shadows. Now, let's move behind the scenes. In a post-episode interview, the show's head writer, Marcus Lee, explained the choice to kill off Conrad early. He said, "MobLand isn't about one man. It's about the machine. Conrad was the face of it, but the engine keeps running. We needed to prove that to the audience and to the characters." He also confirmed that the idea of killing Conrad wasn't added last minute. It had been planned from the start of the season. In fact, actor James Fairchild, who played Conrad, knew from day one that episode 9 would be his final blow. In his own interview, Fairchild said, "I've played dark characters before, but Conrad was something else. He wasn't just evil. He was strategic, broken, and in some ways, deeply afraid. Getting to end his arc the way we did, that was perfect. Quiet, human. That's what MobLand is at its core." There were also some Easter eggs hidden in the death scene that only hardcore fans caught. For example, the jazz record playing in Conrad's study was the same one his wife played in a flashback from episode 2. That wasn't random. It was a deliberate callback, a subtle reminder of who Conrad used to be before the power consumed him. Another small detail, the way Trey sat down across from Conrad mirrored how Conrad once sat across from his own father, moments before he took over the Empire. It's a visual cycle, one generation replacing the next, each one thinking they'll do it better, each one eventually falling the same way. And here's what makes it all so genius. Even with Conrad gone, his presence still shapes everything. Every character is now reacting to that one moment. Some want revenge, some want to take his place, some just want to survive what's coming next. But no one is untouched. So what's next? The writers have confirmed that episode 10 will pick up immediately after Conrad's death. We're talking within minutes. The fallout will be fast, brutal, and full of twists. Because in MobLand, the real danger doesn't come from the man who had power. It comes from the people who want it next. Conrad Harrigan's death wasn't just the end of a kingpin, it was the start of a war. And in a city like MobLand, no crown stays clean for long.